All right, buddy. I'm looking forward to this one, especially because, and I say it to you guys all the time, almost to the degree that I probably could be considered a fanboy, right? That's what we call the people that just follow the band around all the time, like and just like
Yeah.
I have. I got Kijiji underwear signed by Robert Karbaum, dude. Like that sort of a thing. But I've had the pleasure and the honor of working with different eBay organizations, Kijiji, Marktplatz, New Autocope, like Gumtree. And there's something that I find fascinating, an observation, and that is just that there is this authenticity that I really enjoy about Kijiji. Leanne's incredible, Kristen, like just everybody I've met there. There's just something about that speaks to the culture of the organization. I know you guys have stepped up in a huge way during the whole COVID thing. Um, as things are starting to open up a little bit, you guys have offered tremendous support to the dealer community, which I know widespread is very appreciated. And so I guess, I do have some questions for you to talk about, like, okay, we're still kind of in the weeds here with COVID, but keeping in mind also the longevity of the podcast, that it is evergreen. Um, I guess my questions are going to be like, hey, what do we do right now, and what should we be looking toward? I mean, a lot of people may or may not know that you have tremendous experience working in dealership. Like your pre this side of the fence was it DeLowry?
Yeah. So prior to Kijiji, I spent 11 years in automotive retail between Wayne's Canada and Dilawri Group of Companies, running digital operations for both those organizations. I started in the file room, being the internet guy, but I kind of worked my way up because this internet thing didn't really go away to my benefit. So yeah, I've seen everything there is to see inside of a dealership. I've changed oil. I've sold cars. I've ran and got floor mats for a delivery at the last second.
Right.
And I've done my fair share of BDC marketing, digital advertising. So yeah, I've seen
No,
what
no
it's like to
stranger.
be a dealer.
Yeah, no stranger to this. And I mean, like, let us not forget the best practice, or the innovation awards, and all of these things for best idea and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, I guess leaning on your experience, your vantage point, from a consumer's perspective, it's nice that we are starting to see some consumer confidence, right? Like I'm seeing reports from dealers. They're like, hey, like things seem to be turning back on here. For those that are maybe iffy, like how do like, is it safe to buy a car right now? Is this the time to be doing it? Should I be holding on? Should I be waiting? Like, what's your take on is it safe to buy right now?
So my short answer is absolutely. The slightly longer answer is obviously the health and safety of our community is always Kijiji Auto's top priority.
Right.
We recommend following the most up-to-date guidelines set out by Health Canada and the COVID-19 Kijiji Auto safety precautions on our website and on our app.
Right.
As for the car buying transaction itself, yeah, absolutely. We're seeing a lot of dealers quickly adapting to these unprecedented times by offering consumers a variety of ways to complete their vehicle transaction safely. Now, is this the right time to buy a car? The joke is always the best time to buy a car is New Year's Eve at about 4:45 before the dealership closes so they can hit their targets. Right now, we are seeing some unprecedented support from the manufacturers encouraging consumers to buy a car.
Right.
So, yeah, is it safe? Absolutely. Is it a good time to do it? Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because I mean, when you think about, like, is it the time? I've got employees who are buying cars right now, simply predicated upon the fact that their lease expired. And what I think is interesting about this whole deal is, if my lease expires, my lease expires. There's nothing I can do about this. And to your point, the manufacturers, like, they are coming out with some pretty spectacular incentives for purchasing a vehicle right now. But what I also think is interesting is the fact that maybe 2.5 months ago, I might have been looking at a vehicle that could have been considered a more luxury purchase, a want maybe or whatever. Now I think we're seeing this surge of, oh, vehicles are freedom, vehicles are utility. Like, dude, I ain't sorry, and I'm not judging, but I'm not hopping on public transit right now. I was a germaphobe pre-COVID. I'm still like, it's funny, man. Like, people would be like, oh, calm down, you wash your hands 76 times a day and blah 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 blah. And then COVID happened and they all start panicking like freaks of nature. And I'm like, cool, now you know how I feel every day of the week. And you don't realize that I'm actually apparently I'm better at managing this whole germaphobe thing than you are. But you guys, but I digress. Welcome to the show that is Cirillo. You guys are doing something cool though on your website. I remember reading about where there's like a badge or like a banner or something that dealers can put that signify that they're taking these precautions?
Yeah, so very quickly in response to COVID-19,
Yeah.
Kijiji unveiled COVID-19 response badges that would support the dealers and allow them to highlight the new transaction types that they have available. Things like online financing, online payment, at-home delivery, test
Yeah.
drives. And since launching, we can see at scale how quickly these dealers are adopting to these new ways of selling. And as of today, we have over 1,300 dealers representing over 140,000 vehicles on the platform that are using these badges. And yes, they're very helpful now to quickly identify, is a dealership open? Are they open just for service, open for sales? But we can see this as something that can be done after we're in the new normal, of ways that dealers can really highlight these new modern ways of selling.
Okay. So this is interesting. So I think it's nice having this kind of like peace of mind thing in place. And I think that's going to go a long way, especially in the quote unquote new normal. I to my point about germaphobes, like, I think this just created a whole slew of new germaphobes out there. And so I like just having, for me, speaking for myself, I love having just that little extra piece of like, oh, okay, they're thinking about this. It's the worst when you wish a company was thinking about it, and maybe they are, but they just never let anybody know that they have a process in place. So that's really cool. But speaking about buying cars, because I mean, I know that not everyone is going to necessarily deal with, well, like, let's look at Kijiji. I can go on there right now, and sure, I can filter by dealer, but I can also filter by a slew of private sellers. What should I be considering? Because I mean, I maybe I'm not up to speed. Private sellers probably don't have access to the badge, right? So what if anything do you would a massive site like Kijiji that thrives in kind of the private seller, private buyer arena, to what should I be taking into consideration as a private buyer, I guess, if I'm buying from a private seller?
Definitely. So we want to encourage every consumer or every buyer, or every seller to act with their best interests, act with their gut, and to understand, what's comfortable for them and what's not. We've also, across Kijiji and Kijiji Autos, included some COVID-19 information, which helps consumers, buyers and sellers transact safely within our ecosystem. I would say that if you're following guidelines set out by Health Canada, and you're doing the best hand washing you can, and you take these proper precautions, that everything is set up so that you can transact if you need to transact, if you feel comfortable to transact.
Right.
And to your point about being a germaphobe, I you're a little bit right.
Yeah.
I there was some jokes about learning how to wash hands, and I went online, and there was that video of someone wearing a white glove and black paint, and I legitimately learned how to wash my hands better as a result of all of this. So, I think there's some wins coming out the other side of this.
Oh
That
crap! I actually have to wash my thumb. I forgot. How have I forgotten about my thumb this whole
Yeah, and
time?
like the backs and the twirls with the fingers, that's all new to me. That's
Yeah.
net new positive. But hand washing aside, yeah, we want to help our entire community as much as possible. We've put as much information we can across the site to help everyone in their transactions.
One of the things that I think is really interesting, I mean, this is something I talk about on stage all the time. Anytime I'm given an opportunity to open my mouth, I bring up one concept. You remember, look how quickly we can move from topic to topic in the industry. Just not too long ago, like not inside of a year ago, it was all about the fear around disruption. You're going to be disrupted. Look at Uber, look at Airbnb, look at GitHub and blah blah blah. And it was like, oh dear, we don't like being disrupted. And I brought up this concept, which I still believe is so timely, directly applicable today as it was a year ago when I might have talked about it. And I think I talked about it in Toronto at an event. I talked about it in the fall at Dealer Talk X. And it's this concept of, and buckle up, folks, there's a point to all of this, which is you were worried about disruption and you were citing companies like Uber. And you've crossed your wires because you've been led to believe that disruption means creating an entirely new thing that never existed before that's going to just come in and steal your lunch. And what I like to point out is if you really look at Uber, what did they do that was so quote unquote disruptive? I mean, people were paying for they were hailing cabs before, they were paying for rides before Uber. Did Uber create the internet? No. Did they create smartphones? No. Did they create the concept of mobile apps? No. Payment processing? No. Oh, so you mean that they leveraged things that already exist and compiled them in a way that presented an existing concept in maybe a less frictionless way, or in a frictionless way. Well, here's where I'm going with this. It's safe to unbuckle our seatbelts, because here's where I'm going with this. Now we're in this phase where there's a lot of gaslighting. There's going to be even more gaslighting coming out of this deal. The narrative has quickly shifted from disruption to digital retail. Oh, if you don't have digital retail, you're not going to be able to do it. You consider yourself closed. You're out of business. Yet, we are seeing dealers who have taken things that they've always had, CRM, email, website, phones, people, and they've magically assembled them in a way that has met kind of the needs of this whole crisis, in a way that they've still been able to sell vehicles. And as things are turning back on, they're still able to sell vehicles. So as it pertains to selling vehicles at a time like this, and especially you're experiencing working on the retail side, how do you see dealers have been handling leads, and maybe what advice can you offer for them to adapt? Maybe those that are struggling to adapt to this time, to help them realize that they probably already have everything they need. They just need to shift a process or something.
So I know everyone has had one of these meetings before, and I'm going to try and take a more positive spin on it. But it really is a back to basics meeting. And, we've all had these Saturday morning 9 a.m. or 8:30 a.m. and the sales manager brings you in. And it's all about back to basics, but
Right.
That's really what it is here. Dealers don't need to run out and buy new technology. Most of the changes are just simply adapting to the desires of today's consumer. And most dealers can do that with the tools that they have at their disposal. So first and foremost, the most important thing now more than ever, and literally now more than ever, is merchandising is so crucial. Within each VDP, telling a story about each vehicle that's compelling enough that the vehicle can sell itself is of the utmost importance. Dealers really need to spend time merchandising inventory. If possible, go back and custom rewrite every vehicle description with its own story, where it came from, the benefits, the drawbacks, the dings, every little detail. And then even better, we all have a professional video studio in our phone, video walkarounds of every single vehicle, providing as much information that you can up front. This builds trust with the consumer. It helps answers those questions of, is this the right vehicle for me? Because ultimately, once the consumer finds the right vehicle, the rest of it is pretty easy. And that was, the line that I always used when people came in for pricing, because it was true. Once you found the right vehicle, everything else falls into place. But now the consumer has to find the right vehicle without the help of a salesperson in a lot of cases. There is the opportunity to engage in video chat, text chat, or just picking up the phone or email leads, and those are crucially important too. But you got to start with things like making sure that you're doing the primary job right of, the cars are the stars. Maximize the value of those online, and I would argue it's more important online now than the vehicle is reconned in person, because you're never going to get a person interested in that vehicle until they fall in love with it online first. And yes, things will adjust slightly and things will get more to a new normal, and we'll have our private sales and our, submarine sandwiches in the dealerships and our balloons, and that will all come back to some degree, but it's not going to come back to exactly what it was. And online merchandising will continue to be more important than ever every single day that goes by.
Yeah. And I think, I agree with that. It comes back to this concept of frictionless. Like, what can I do that removes friction? I love what you're saying, back to basics. There's so many people that don't agree with this concept of back to basics. I always relate it to those home reno shows that I may or may not love and may or may not binge watch. Um, um, they get in there and they're like, we're gonna beautify this house and we're gonna do all these things. We're gonna rip that wall down, and inevitably in every episode of these series that I may or may not watch, um, what happens? The contractor goes, "Hey, sorry, but your foundation's faulty. We're not. So you got to pick. Like, what are you gonna do? You can either. I mean, none of this makes sense to beautify any of this if the foundation falls apart." And so one of the things that I think is a tremendous strength coming out of this whole experience is that it's caused so many people to stop focusing on what they could do and more on what they should do. And I love what you're saying, like, hey, like, let's rejig this process so that there's less friction. Um, Now, with that in mind, what are you seeing out there? I mean, you guys have such a huge data set, like staggeringly large from every province. So I love that you can see data nationwide, but also kind of break it down by province. What are you seeing as far as creativity? Because I think when I'm put under pressure, I know of myself, I get creative. What are you seeing from the dealer community on how they're responding? Like, are there some creative ways that dealers are dealing with all of this and maybe creating more less friction? What's the right way? What am I saying here? The more frictionless, more frictionless. We want more frictionless.
You just need more WD-40. That's,
There you go.
yeah.
Less hiss and hum when you turn the knob. Um, so what are you seeing out there as far as creativity? Because I know there's dealers out there doing some creative things.
Definitely. One of the favorite things I've seen in the last little while comes from a co-friend and also someone who has a similar barber as us, is Ryan Thompson from Ernie Dean Chevrolet, and
Okay.
he did a video of a start to finish, like, contactless sale, and it was so honest, it was so true, it really sold the entire story. Even had his kid in there,
Nice.
of what it's like to transact on a vehicle and how safe and easy it is to do. And I think more dealers need to show the humanity of this, show their true selves, and show how they're helping individuals. You see that a lot. I do a lot of Zoom calls, and you're suddenly seeing into everyone's home. You're seeing a little touch of their personality. This is an opportunity for a dealer to do that
Right.
with their audience, with their consumers. There's another individual, I don't know who he is, and I'll find out who he is afterwards, but it's an Acura dealer, and this gentleman has been singing in his dealership, singing at his house, just singing. I have no idea why, and whether or not you're a fan of his singing, you got to respect how he's sharing his life and his home and his positive spirit with consumers. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of, showing humanity, showing the real side of what it's like to work in automotive retail, and to make that connection that we're all in this together.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about this is full admission of guilt here. There have been times in the past, especially as I built this podcast, where I was so concerned about the optics. Like, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm sitting in a produced set right now. Like, it's not a, it like, and so obviously, yeah, I like it to look good, but you know how many podcasts over the last month and a half I produced from my master bedroom because the children had commandeered my home office for homeschool and things of that nature. What's interesting about that, to your point, is nobody cared. Nobody cared. Hey guys, the first few calls I was like, hey, sorry, I'm working, I'm trying to position this so you don't see my bed literally right here. Nobody cared. They cared that I don't care if you're in an outhouse, in a truck stop bathroom, in your master bedroom, or in a well produced studio. If there is value to your message, that's something that I think is really shines coming out of this. The human side of it, like, oh, Cirillo's a human. He doesn't live in his studio. Like, he's not there all the time. He may or may not be wearing pants. And if he is wearing pants, his pants may or may not match the top. Like, who knows? And for this industry specifically, I think sometimes we care too much about the optics. Part of that is maybe the optics, the brand guidelines and all that. I understand that, but sometimes it's like, oh no, tighten the tie, and I must now speak like, I am Edwin Dearborn the Fourth, and we must, it's like, whoa, wait, what? Um, this ties into your point about using smartphone. Like, you have this movie studio in your pocket at all times, and so many people, like, I get a ton of questions like, what do you use to stabilize and this and that? And like, yeah, I get it, those things are nice. Nobody wants to watch video that's bouncing around. But it also, in the same token, if you don't have that, or you can't afford it, or it's not on your priority list right now, that should not stop you from ripping this out and just letting people see you, and for you to not just say transparency, but to demonstrate transparency. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, that's why, dude, that's why Ryan's the dealer geek, man. You don't get that title just by not going above and beyond. So that's super cool. I mean, what are some other things, like what do you make of the singing guy? Like, how do you, cuz I know why I think there's value in that, but I mean, what's your take on that?
I think my take is, this goes to kind of the beautiful resiliency that all dealers have. And, as a back in my retail days, I've gone through a few, you know, hiccups, the 08, 09 financial crisis. I was at a Toyota dealership when the unintended acceleration situation happened. And yeah, COVID-19, this is a very different scenario, but there's always this sentiment that to be in control of what you can be in control of and to not let everything else get in your way. And, if I had to take a stab at why an Acura dealer would do a whole bunch of videos of him singing, it's to really show that positive spirit shining through, that we can get through this. And that is his natural talent. And he said, okay, this is how I'm going to help. This is how
Right.
I'm going to do things. And
Yeah.
he just turns on the camera and goes with it. And whether it's singing or some other sort of trick or just talking about vehicles that you're passionate about, that shows the human side of the equation. And humans really like to buy from other humans, whether or not there's a digital retailing element involved. At the end of the day, we all benefit from this human interaction that we're kind of all starving for, because we see someone walk by our house and we're all like dogs being like, ooh, person, person,
A real
person. Like,
person. Yeah.
so that's why I think it is that that's what he was in control of. So he went with it. And it's just this, I maybe it's just me, but it really resonated with me as him doing everything in his power to just keep propelling, keep being positive, and working to help his consumers.
Yeah. I think so. I put out a podcast about a month ago with 10 ideas that dealers could implement immediately that don't cost any money to just keep momentum building to show this human side. And it was ideas just like this. Like I've been, and by the way, these are not things that I'm just saying you should do. Like I'm some sort of pocket expert. These are things that I'm actually doing that I'm seeing results from. And one of the things that I've been doing was a Friday night game show on Facebook Live where I sit at my piano. I play piano by ear. I'm classically trained in the guitar, but I play piano by ear. I just set up my phone and I would be like, all right, guys, here's how the game works. You're going to have 3 chances to guess the song. I'm going to play 5 seconds of a song at random. You have an opportunity to guess. If you guess all three in a row, I'm going to send you a $25 gift card. Right? Super easy. I can send you an Amazon gift card, no problem. Dude, I had dozens and dozens and dozens of people and a lot of people go, well, like, you crazy fool, what does that have to do with your business and growing your business? And my thing is, like, it has everything to do with my business because it shows that I can reach beyond just talking about business and I can provide relief. I can provide my audience something that they need more right now than maybe just the brass tacks of business. They need relief. They're bored to tears. They can only binge watch so much Netflix. This is something unique. It engages them. It's a game. It's fun. And guess who they're looking at the whole time? Right. And so it's a powerful branding plan. So I love what you're saying about that. Shifting gears here, just kind of winding down a little bit. I mean, I started by saying that I love Kijiji, hashtag not sponsored, hashtag should have been sponsored, but not sponsored. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I love you guys. And so I want to kind of bring this full circle by in the beginning, I kind of mentioned loosely that you guys have had specific responses to how you are supporting the Canadian market. And I'm sure, I can't speak conclusively, but I'm sure just knowing the organization that is, the big conglomerate here, that each region has probably done something very similar or is reaching out in unique ways to support the community. But let's talk specific to Canada for a minute. I mean, what are some of the unique things that Kijiji's been able to do to show and demonstrate support for dealers at this time?
Yeah, so we were very proud to be able to provide 100% relief of all listings and features pricing for the months of April and for May. And we realized this was a really helpful thing to do for dealers because it was one less decision that a dealer had to make of, do I keep this employee on or do I have to let them go? And
Right.
there are dealers across this country that have had people on staff for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And the thought of, disrupting their lives, threatening their livelihood, that's a terrible thing to do. And we understand how important it is to keep the dealer's inventory in front of consumers because outside of COVID-19, the normal buying process continues to be there. And if those dealers aren't visible, then
Right.
that's going to hurt them more later on. So that was a big decision that we were very proud to make and very proud to offer to our dealer base. And we got the positive feedback in droves from our clients. We got so many positive messages that it really just uplifted all the spirits of the staff, and it still does every day that goes by. So that's the one thing that we were doing directly for our autos customers. And then at the same time, we've done a number of things to Kijiji Autos, like the COVID-19 badges, to really help dealers do their business more efficiently in addition to that. And then we also unveiled Kijiji Village, which is something on kijiji.ca, which is really just in each neighborhood across the country. What are some services that are available complimentary for people that are looking to help, people who are looking to go shopping or offer free tutoring or job loss like skills training. And then at the same time, if you look at any of our social feeds, you'll see that we're actually promoting some of these listings, these people that are willing to help. So we're trying to just every opportunity we have is to give back to the community that has treated us so well for so many years.
Love it, man. Hey, one last question, and then I want to turn it back to you to the audience to get in touch with you. Like, do you have to whisper your last name in airports? Because like, could
So
you could not have a more controversially charged last name pronunciation than like when I first met you. I'm like, oh, it must be like Karbaum or like Karbaum or like something. No, it's like straight up Karbaum.
so I have been in a situation at Toronto Pearson Airport where someone was running down the big giant hallway screaming my name because this was years ago, we were heading to Cuba and a friend left his passport on like the Tim
Uh,
Hortons kiosk thing.
yeah.
And he got to the gate, realized he couldn't get by, and this friend was running at me, and it happened in slow mo, just screaming "car bomb," trying to get my attention. And then you see her stop when she clicks in, and she's like, "Oh!"
Down on the ground.
But nothing happened. I did get out of an additional screening. You know, when they take you in that back room,
Sure.
and they brought me in there, and I said, "I know why you brought me in there." And the TSA agent was like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "It's because of my last name, isn't it? What's your last name?" And I just sly hand him the passport. He opens
Yeah.
it up. I see him give it to his buddy. They laugh. They're like, "All right, man, get out of here."
Yeah.
So
Nice.
airports and my last name have worked out well.
Nice. I'm just picturing like name Robert Karbaum. What'd you say? Down on the ground. Down. Down on the ground. Like the irony that you work in the automotive industry and your last name is Karbaum is quite spectacular to me. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, man, really appreciate you taking the time to join me on the podcast. How can those listening get in touch with you and learn more? Like, where do they go for all these resources and things that you've talked about on this episode?
Yeah, definitely. The best resource is kijijiautos.ca, of course. But I do a lot of sharing of some of the beneficial things that Kijiji's doing on LinkedIn. I'm very active in sharing all the positive news about Kijiji and all the different things we're doing in the community. So either one of those two places is the best way to reach me.